Hi everyone, the Mature Simmer here. It's getting a little cold up here in northern Canada. Alright, so here we are. I'm just going to get moving along because we've got some work to do. Time continues to drift. I'm not up here and on the server at 3:25 in the morning, I promise you. So we need to remember what we're doing. Well, I did remember what I was doing. I just didn't realize I need to bring something with me to do it. So we are putting herbicide on the field. And as I noted in the start, it is November, so last day of fall. Saw it was 46 Fahrenheit, which honestly isn't that bad. I wish it was 46 Fahrenheit here, and where I'm at right now, that would be nice and almost steamy, but we continue to be in the 20s and the 30s. But it is early March in real life, so that's not unexpected either. So the piece that, once again, I don't know, because I do think like what's spread across the field there is a bunch of weeds. Let me look at the map. So yeah, you can see that that is what is kind of showing up, is weeds there. Now if I turn off fertilize, let's see, does it... It doesn't show anything. I'm almost wondering if I just don't do weed killer right now. And it's also interesting that it doesn't like show it in spots, it just shows that you've got weeds. I think I'm going to need it either way. So to avoid weed showing up, I'll go ahead and do it. I was planning on doing it. And I'll get that work done. Now, I'm going to keep this episode really short, honestly. This is the exact same work I just did with the second thing of fertilizer. So there's not going to be a whole lot else to see. So what I will do is definitely just cover it as a time lapse. And then do a few things as we prepare for our big day starting tomorrow, where we have winter and where we can do logging, because that's when our next group of real significant work is going to commence. And if it's all good, it might even finish, but I think that would be unlikely. But honestly, I'd be happy if I could just clear out enough of a space that I could start to put a few buildings down and feel like I can see the yard starting to emerge from where I'm at. Alright, so I do want to make sure here that as I fill this, let's see, liquid fertilizer, herbicide. So I know it's going to be 5,200, but I don't know the cost. So it is, I'm just kind of trying to find my notes here. Yep, it is exactly the same as liquid fertilizer, which, if I recall, is exactly what it was in FS19. So, not surprisingly, the trend continues. So, we'll get this part done. And we'll go from there. You know what? I'm gonna change my mind, because it's not like I'm dying to throw money on the field I don't need to, and I need to understand what FS22 does. So obviously the field next to me shows weeds. It could be that until I harvest, I'm not gonna have weeds sprout. Maybe they don't show up after seeding like they did in FS19. Now it's also possible that they're just going to show up later when the crop is more mature. So before I get to the end of the field, I will hop out so that we can see the additional field info and kind of see what we've got, because I think it will give us some info on the growing state. I might be remembering incorrectly. But there's still a little bit of other work I can get done here. So I've got 2 pieces of equipment I need. Alright, so we're at a yield bonus of plus 98%. It just says growing. It doesn't tell me how much it's growing. But I at least have herbicide, and if those pesky weeds start to show up for me, I'm ready to go after them. And if not, I can just store the herbicide, because I'm sure I'll need it at some point. So I'm just going to turn this off, because honestly I'm not going to need... No, you know, well, yeah, I don't know which tractor I'm going to use to get the stuff. Alright, so the first purchase I'm going to make is a forklift. I need to get that honey pallet moved. It was actually full yesterday. I'm going to go with a gas one, just because I don't want to have multiple things on my farm to refuel at this point. Again, I may change my mind in the future, but I'm not going with methane or electric. Right, so the other thing I want to take a look at is what I need for the tree work tomorrow. Alright, so right here next to chainsaws, I finally found the forestry equipment. I don't know why I was not seeing it before. I'm not going to transport logs. I'm going to... I need to remove tree stumps. So I can use these. So this is 2 meters. Grinds down tree stumps. And then breaks things into wood chips. Oh goodness. Well, this changes things, because this is definitely more expensive than I thought. Let's see. So, the nice thing though is I don't need a trailer, it looks like, to carry the wood chips. It looks like it's self-contained. Like you put the tree in, and then it just is going to store it, because it's got a capacity of 16,000 liters. So let's see. Alright, so the decision I've made is that I am going to lease that piece of equipment. As much as I'd like to say, hey, I own it. I promise I didn't steer that way just because I was turning my lights on and I was just unable to steer. I was wrestling with myself, because certainly, like, I've got money, I can own the thing, but I can't think of significant times where I'm going to suddenly be like, yeah, I'm just going to have this other push to remove a whole lot of trees. And once again, I mean, if I'm going to remove some trees, you know, because there will be times I'm definitely going to go ahead and maybe clear more later. But at 190,000, you know, it looks like basically it's like $9,600 a day is what it will cost me if I read the numbers in the leasing correctly. So it's basically $10,000, which means, you know, I could rent this thing for 19 days and finally pay the cost it would cost me to purchase it. Now, certainly there's an argument that, okay, when I sell it back, I would make some money back. And that's not inaccurate, but I also know how quickly the value of machines deteriorated in FS19, and there's nothing that leads me to believe that that's different in this game. And the challenge will be, like, I can only do forestry in the winter. So it's like once I get out of this winter season, I'm going to have that equipment sitting there for 9 days, likely to some degree deteriorating. It may not, because it's not being used, so I don't know, you know, exactly how the algorithm works. I haven't frankly looked at it that closely, but even if it doesn't, I'm sure using it for those 3 days, you know, it can easily drop 30-40%, and, you know, instead of getting 190,000, I'm getting 90. So let's say I sell it best case back for half of what I paid. You know, I'm still talking 9 or 10 days that I can use that thing, and I don't anticipate, with all the logging I would possibly do, that I would ever need that equipment for 9 or 10 days. So I'm going to take a little bit of a chance in that. Obviously I don't want to lease it now at 3 a.m. in November and then not be able to use it at all until December and pay a day of leasing costs just to have it ready. We are supposed to get snow pretty much every 3 days in the winter, it looks like, but I'm going to assume, given that when I get on the map tomorrow, it's probably going to be even earlier than this, because the time will have drifted again. So it probably won't have started to snow yet, and even if it does, it should just be a few hours in and maybe won't have accumulated enough. And in any case, I'll probably head over there with the giant case as opposed to the Massey Ferguson, and that should have enough horsepower to kind of power through anything that's on the ground. So looking at that as I was taking a peek, it was really, I think the challenge is because it was a self-contained piece of equipment, the wood chipper that we had available to us in FS19 was a tow behind, and it really was just a conveyor belt and a chipper, and then it output into a trailer. And I think it was still like 50,000. It wasn't like it was super inexpensive, but it wasn't 200,000. But because this is a chipper that then can transport, and then the other thing I noticed is it has an arm on it that you could use to basically pick up larger logs. Now, and again, I don't think I'm going to use that, the method I had developed in FS19, because I just didn't want to create more work for myself, and I do not enjoy the aspect of logging, specifically operating cranes to try to move giant sticks of wood around that dance all over and fly around and just frankly frustrate the heck out of me as I'm trying to get them where I want them to be. Is I just usually cut the trees in small enough pieces that I can pick them up and just by hand put them in the wood chipper. So that's the plan, but that's also why this piece of equipment is so expensive, because you've got a hydraulic arm, obviously all the controls to manipulate that arm, you've got a chipper, you've got a transportation trailer, and you know, it's just all that kind of stuff. Why is this? Now, why is this not? I guess I was hitting the ground or something. Alright, let me get a little closer in here, because clearly I can't see appropriately. And maybe the forks are just too wide. Can I adjust the forks? I can. Well, that's fancy. It's not helpful, clearly, but at least right now. But it is fancy. Whoops. Alright, come on. I bought a forklift because I figured this would be easier than a pallet fork on the front of a tractor. Alright, so now we lift that. Let's see. Okay, that will let me tip it back because I don't want to drop it. And then I'm going to go ahead and... yeah, I mean, oh, there you go. And that was kind of what I figured would be happening, is that we'd have honey stacked up. So I'm going to just lay this down here. Let's see, that should be what I need. Pull that out, pick this up a bit, move it back. Question is, how many of these pallets do I really have? Now, I could try to stack them on top of each other. Since this is going to be like a super short video, I guess we'll go ahead and try that. Like, you know, why not give you something to be entertained with? The guy driving a forklift in a video game who has driven a forklift in real life and work that I did in manufacturing plants at times, so it's not like I don't know how these things work. And I promise you I was able to do this much more effectively in a real forklift, but alright, come on. Alright, I'm going to pull these together even more, just because they're being difficult. Because obviously the only separation I have is the little piece of wood in the center. I mean, it does require that I be a little bit more precise with my placement, but I'm assuming then it means I'm going to have less difficulty in actually getting in there. So we'll see if more appears. I'm guessing it will, but I hope it's not full. It isn't. Alright. But, yeah, and I guess we've had the beehives for a few days. So, I don't know why. Well, I know why, because of the force feedback wheel. I thought I was straight, and then I wasn't looking at my rear tires and realized I was not. Alright, so we'll line this up a bit. Now I gotta move it back a tiny bit. Alright, and then we'll put that down. Whoops, a little too much down, because what I don't want is come on. Alright. So we'll leave that there. We'll leave the lights on so we can see. So we're almost full. I mean, we have 303 kilograms. I'll turn the lights off now, because, like, why waste energy? So that gets us what we need. You know, it's one of those, like, I've done enough work. I don't need more work for myself, because I got things like this that I get to look forward to in the future. Rock picking. So I've got a lot of work I don't need to be doing already built into the way the game works, so why create work I don't need? So let me just make sure, now that I've kind of driven near the field, that suddenly it's not showing up, because yeah, you know, what I don't know is, like, if it's fertilized, does that overlay weeds? And maybe they've got some dynamic, like if I fertilize quickly, like, weeds don't show up. Because frankly, I'm trying to see, like, he needs rolling, and he needs lime. I'm just trying to, like, turn things off that might be hiding it. But yeah, I mean, at this point, if this is accurate, it's like field 39, 7, 15, and 32 are the only fields on the entire map with weeds. I don't know yet why that is, but it is. And so until I start seeing some of this, because if I turn this off, in fact, yes, those fields do turn off. So those are weeds, but until I see them, I don't know that it makes sense, because they're growing, so this green shows up. But you know, once again, there's so many gradients here that I can't tell specifically where we're at. But the good news is basically we've, in theory, I guess, nearly doubled our yield with the work we've done. I'm pretty confident rock picking didn't contribute to the yield, but everything else we did, including rolling, which was a little less clearly useful type thing, was there. Yeah, I'm going to have to get familiar with some of these. So loading, tipping stations, things like that. All right. But no, there's not much to say other than I guess we dodged a bullet of what I expected today. So I'll go off and use the time I have this morning to work on something else. I've got some maps to tour and so forth that I've seen. So maybe I'll go do that. And then we'll be back here tomorrow. We'll start out with renting the contraption to chip the trees. You know, and maybe even do that after we cut down a few, just to feel like, yeah, we've done some destruction that's helping us get to some construction that we need on the other end. So I don't know why I kept this on the map so long. I'm sorry about that, just because I did. Fall colors are nice. I wish I could, you know, see them in the daylight a bit, because yeah, I'm sure they look more like that than a muted color. But there'll be time enough for that in the future. We'll have other falls here on this map. But we've got a pretty good setup. Obviously, we don't have a harvester yet. But most of the equipment we're going to need in the short term. You know, we're going to need a trailer to transport material, a couple of them, a liquid trailer and a bulk trailer, and then a harvester and a header, and I think that'll be it until, you know, some specialty things that we might decide to do, you know, root crops and so forth, but we'll see how that goes. For now, I think we've got enough. We've got had a good short evening or early morning, and I will see you tomorrow.